I think we are ready. We can start because we just have 45 minutes as in the rest of the sessions. Welcome everyone to this webinar. We've been here from 10 in the morning. So this is, I think, the fourth webinar that we have this morning, and is part, as many of or some of the participants may know, this is part of the multiplier event of our European project. We have this project that is focused on researcher identity development, and we are particularly interested, as you know, in early career researcher development. When I talk about I refer to a group of researchers, a team of researchers from different European countries, 5 countries now, working together for almost 10 years now. We do empirical research and we offer resources and training all over the world. So we invite you to visit our website. We will just put on the screen now in the first slide, you will see the website address, and you can find there the results, the outputs of the projects, the publications. Everything is on an open regime basis. And mostly we invite you to visit our final output for the present project that is will be just typed on the chat. I think Anna will share this site on the chat.
Yeah, so I already did.
Okay, I invite you to visit this social site. This is a site for early career researchers. We call it Researchers Like Me, and it's that. So a group of researchers like probably you, the participants here. It's a beta version still, but for that we invite you to participate. So to give us feedback, to give us your impressions. We want to know if the website, the site, it's a social site, if it's useful, and well, the number of participants is growing every day, and if you are there participating, we will know if it's useful or not. If you share your feedback, we will be able to improve it. As I said, this is the last session this morning, but that's a very important session for us. We'll focus on a very crucial topic for early career researchers, which is gender and career uncertainty. We've been saying through the morning in the different sessions, we've been discussing how much uncertain researcher careers are. But especially this is true for women. This is a necessary issue to reflect on, and considering the already available data regarding the pandemic consequences on women and gender balance, this is more urgent than ever. So it's for us a great pleasure to have here Ada, Nuria, and Sylvia, 3 early career researchers, 3 women that are, as you know, members. Actually, I think you are founders of the Gender and Science AIL group. This is a very active group that since 2014 has conducted different projects, has conducted different activities, including scientific publication, assessing the situation of women in limnology, which is her field of expertise. So we are very happy to count on you for this seminar. And just a few numbers for the participants, because the webinar format does not allow you to see the rest of participants to know who we are here today. So we are 66 participants registered for this session. And what is even more amazing is from different countries. So we have people spread all over the world. So that includes participants from Africa, Morocco, or Nigeria, participants from the United States, welcome, South America, Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, Ecuador, and Asia, people from India, Japan, and of course from other all over European countries. So we are, well, that's one of the probably advantages or opportunities that this situation, strange situation of being everyone at home brings us to this diversity of participants. It's so easy for us to be connected. And well, as you know, the participants, I think you know the dynamics of the session. It will be a short presentation. So Nuria, Ada, and Silvia will present the topic and they explain their activities for the next 20 minutes. And then we'll pass the floor to you, the participants, through this panel that you have at the bottom of the screen, the questions and answers tool. So we'll collect the questions, and if necessary, if there are some questions that we cannot answer during the session, because we will finish at 45. So if we don't have time, don't worry, just raise the question, and Ada, Nuria, and Silvia have been very kind to answer the questions offline. So we will circulate a doc with the answers if we don't have time to answer all of them. We used the chat for comments on interactions among the participants. So please use the questions and answers just for questions, and then we can use the chat for other purposes, just to interact with the other participants, okay? Okay, thank you very much, the three of you, for being here today. So the floor is yours. You have to activate your microphones. Nuria, we can't hear you. You have to activate the micro.
Yes, okay. Now, sorry. Thanks a lot for the introduction, Monse, and thanks a lot for inviting us today to be here with all of you. We are very, very happy and honored of having this opportunity. So, as Monse said, we are the Gender and Science group, and we want to share today with you a bit of a summary of the motivations and activities that we have been doing in the last years to promote women's participation in sciences. So we are a working group of the Iberian Association of Limnology. That means that we are focused mainly in Spain and Portugal, although not only, but our members basically come from these countries. The fish is because limnology is the study of inland waters, so that you have an idea of the topic in science that we are in. We are working in a volunteer basis, and we get some support in different aspects from the AIL. So if you have questions about this, on how to do this with your association, feel free to ask. As Monse said, we started in 2014, officially in a conference. And right now we are around 30 members in the group, but we also count with external collaborators like Anna, for example. So what motivated us? I think it was around 2013 that we started to discuss papers like this one. Some of you might remember. These authors, they sent around a curriculum. It was exactly the same curriculum, but with the name of a man and the name of a woman, and asked some faculty members to review it for a position. And in different aspects of the CV, it was always the male that was receiving a better evaluation. So as early careers, we ask ourselves, okay, is it going to happen to me when I start applying to positions? And this is only one example. There were a lot of other, I would say, relevant papers that came out in those years. So we started to really think a lot about this and to, how we can evaluate that. We also checked the report of the European Commission that comes out every 3 years, the SHE figures. And in the SHE figures of 2012, there was this graph. This is the evolution, let's say, the seniority evolution of within the scientific career. So from students here to chair professors. And as you can see, we start with students that are a majority of women. And as we advance in the different career stages, we reach like a 20-80 proportion. So that was, another, it's an important indicator. And we were also kind of hesitating, okay, is this also happening in limnology? As a spoiler towards the future, if we look into the She Figures 2015, we see a similar situation. And even in the last one, in 2018, again, we have this percentage of senior positions, 20-80. So a lot of work needs to be done. And another example on what motivated us more specifically in ecology, so limnology would be a field within ecology. Laura Martin, in this evaluation, she showed that we do have this scissor graph, this seniority problem in ecology. And even if we look into the publications in ecology field, there is also a very important bias in the authors of these publications. So we wanted to, first of all, evaluate this. With those ideas, we launched the Gender and Science group. First, to act as an observer of this type of biases within the AIL, to foster the visibility of women in the scientific community, and to propose recommendations to improve gender equity in limnology. So those are the projects and activity that we will present to you today. I will focus on the first two, but you will see, just a sum up, that they are all framed towards these three objectives, either to evaluate the situation or to foster the visibility of women. So the first thing that we did is to start a platform for discussion. I think the group itself is a platform for discussion. We have an email group and so on, so we share papers, ideas, etc. But in addition, we organize in the AIL conference roundtables. So it becomes something that is discussed across all the association. And in these roundtables, we also invite experts to discuss more in depth different aspects that can affect us. For this year, we got Irene Iniesta invited, and she talked about equity and colonialism in science. It was very interesting. One thing that it's very nice that we do in these roundtables is that we collect the discussions. So this is a Wordle with the words that we say more in these discussions. This is 2014, and this is the one of this year. And I think you can, just with the Wordles, you can see how our ideas are evolving throughout the years. The second thing that we did is to really perform a more, let's say, scientific evaluation of the situation. That, as Monse mentioned, at the end, we shared through a publication in Limnetica. And I'm going to show you the main results. So the first thing that we took is that we took the member list of the association, and we checked the position in the scientific career of each member. And as you can see, we found exactly as in the European Commission that we also have this scissor graph. Actually, the students that are motivated to study biology or ecologically related PhDs are higher that we saw in the EC. So we have around 70% female students. But then when we advance to chair positions, we have exactly the opposite picture. We took also a study that had been published recently back then, collecting the articles in limnology. And here in black, you can see the women that were authors in those papers. The continuous line indicates first authorship. In our field in limnology, the first author is usually the one doing the work, the one really performing the analysis and pushing it forward. And it looks like it has increased since 2000. But if we look into this line, this is the last author. And in limnology, the last author is typically the lead of the project. the one with the money, let's say. So this number, as you can see, it hasn't really changed. So not so much different for leadership in women in science, in limnology. In that work, we also share a poll with all the members of the association, and we ask them, among other things, but we want to highlight this question: which barriers do you think you face in your career? And as you can see, the main barriers are related to funding, salary, job scarcity. Both women and men detected them as barriers. But if we look more closely into those barriers related with having children, taking care of your family and life career, it's in all cases women that identify them as barriers. Finally, the last thing we evaluated is the number of plenary speakers in the IEL conferences. And as you can see, either no speakers were female or less than 50% of the speakers were female. And some good news, rising awareness in the IEL seemed to work. We published a study here, and since then, we had either 50% or more of women as plenary speakers in the IEL conferences. So push forward because it works. And with this, I give the floor to Silvia.
Okay, hi everyone. I hope you can see it. Is it not projected? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you like the other project or some other projects that we have. This one, Gender Limno Edu, is the newest one that we have in our hands. Is research resources for teaching in the university or also in high school or wherever. More for professors. We just got a grant from the European Geophysical Union for it. And so we are just starting with it, the first meeting last week. So it's very, very recent. And yeah, as I said, it's like to put online some resources for the teaching to increase women visibility in different fields of the limnology. It consists in 3 parts. The first part is a self-evaluation survey. So it's just to be aware if you are like gender bias, if you have gender bias or not in your knowledge and how you teach limnology to your students. Second packages is more to connect ideas with research, with women researchers. What means that, for example, you take a topic, let's say in our field, nitrogen cycle in lakes. So then you look for this topic and then you can find women researchers that work on this and what were their main findings in the topic, no? And then you can introduce them in your lectures. And then the third package is more like we will give more presentations that you can either use or adapt to yourself. That, for example, could be directly a PowerPoint about women in limnology. So that's the first idea. Another one that it's also quite trendy now and quite new. It's a survey, an online survey about how the pandemic of COVID-19 has impacted in our own research activities. This is with the idea to see if the impact has been different depending on the gender of the researcher. And then we treat like different topics, what is how it has impacted in your emotional state, in your research activity per se, publications, conference, meetings. And if you receive any support from your institutions or from your colleagues or from your family or whatever. And then these, we are very glad that we could collaborate with Sintra Group and they let us reuse their own survey that they were already preparing for that. And we introduced some gender questions to reach more our objectives. And I cannot show you data about that because it's still online. So far we have 100 participants already. And the survey is in Spanish, Portuguese, and English because yeah, they are the 3 official languages of the Association of Limnology, of the Iberian Association of Limnology. And then this is our project that it might be the most visual one. It's an exhibition about women in limnology. It started in 2017 and it has been done by 20 volunteers of the group. And it's also, again, like the objective is to increase the visualization of women researchers, like in the past, in the present, and the future. So it consists in some panels that explain how women researchers have been working on limnology field for a long time in different countries and in different topics of it. And then how is it now in the Iberian Peninsula, that includes Portugal and Spain? And how is it like, how women researchers reach power, not in these associations of limnology, you may say like the AIL, the one that we are working on, or other ones in Europe, and see if they become even to be president of the associations or not. This exhibition consists in 8 panels, and it has also 42 videos of researchers, of women researchers, that they explain their own situation and how they do it on their normal life. And research institutes or universities or whoever wants to project this or to show it can contact us and ask for the panels, and then we send them. And we also give access to the video so they can be projected at the same time that the panels are exposed in some space. So far, we started that in 2017. The inauguration was in 2018, and it has been a long tour since then. It was inaugurated in the conference of the Iberian Association of Limnology that we are part of it. But then it has been in more than 12 other cities, from Portugal, Germany, France, Spain, Croatia, Sweden, and it has traveled more than 20,000 kilometers, and you can see here where they have been. And from this exposition had an impact in different parts, and we reuse this information for other things. So from it, we publish a popular science article in Aspiadimonis, or it has been in some radio programs, or also some blogs like in the Glion. And we recently also wrote a chapter for a book published in Colombia about women in science, and it's called Mujeres de Agua, so Women of Water. And it's also from this information that we have from the exhibition, we will start working on the LimnoEdu project that I explained at the beginning. And yeah, so far this is. But the tour, it hasn't been only like a personal, we also put it on our Twitter account, and it has been quite well welcomed for people, and we had more than 11,000 views from the video, so we are quite happy about that. And now, yeah, Adam will continue with the last study.
Thank you, Silvia. So I'm going to share my slides. So here I'm going to present one of the studies that we are currently conducting, and it's focusing in particularly in conferences. So why conferences? Well, because conferences are like the platforms where scientific discovery can be achieved, but also it's an important place where career progression of the researchers might happen. Thus, it's essential that these events enable and support equal opportunities of attendance and involvement for all the participants attending in the conference. However, from previous studies, we have seen that women not always achieve these same levels of participation. So in these studies, our objective was to explore the visibility of women during an ecology conference. So then, analyzing the conference, we could promote actions towards a more gender balance for these events. So we in particularly focused in the study of the CIBECOL in 2019. CIBECOL is the Society of Ecology of the Iberian Peninsula, and integrates not only freshwater field as we are from, but also marine ecologists and also terrestrial ecologists. And put together both Spanish and Portuguese researchers and other researchers from different parts of the world. So here in this conference, we analyzed it having the gender perspective from different points of view, 3 in particular, from the participation, the interaction, and the personal experience. So, and we asked several questions. For example, were women and men equally represented in the speaker and chair panels? During the conference, did the attendance depend on the speaker gender? And how did the women and men ask the same amount of questions? And then finally, we were interested to see how women and men perceive their experience with the conference, and if this experience was influenced by their gender. To do that, we analyzed the book of abstract of this conference. We had more than 700 participants and more than 500 contributions, including oral presentations, poster presentations, and invited presentation, both in the general plenary and for each session. Then we analyzed the interaction happening during the conference, where we have a team of volunteers that they evaluate, following a template, what was happening in each talk, and we were able to analyze more than half of the total talks in the conferences, and we analyzed the gender distribution of the attendees of the talk, the questions, the speakers, and the shares. And finally, for the personal experience, we launched an anonymous survey after the conference, which was answered by almost 1/3 of the attendees. Let's move to the results, and we can see that the participation here, we can see that, I put the laser here, that the attendance of the conference was was balanced, so 48% of the attendance were women, and it was also through the balance, the gender balance for the presentation of poster and orals. For the more prestigious talks, the invited ones, we can see that the plenary was also balanced, with 44% of the talks being women, the presenter. But when we look at the invited presentations in the special sessions, this was less. It was a less presence of women, with only 1/3 of the presentations being women. Here we look at the chair of the chair teams that they were organizing the session, and we can see that most of the sessions were organized by teams composed mostly by men. More than 60% of the group of chair being men, and that was true for half of the sessions organized. As following up of what Nuria was explaining you about the paper in the AIL in the limnology field, here we can see also that that the men were also much more present as last authors. So in particular, 72% of the communications were signed by last author that was men, which indicates in our fields, indicate that it's this leading role of the work. When we move to the interaction, so what was happening during the conference, we saw that the attendance was higher when the speaker was a man. In particularly in the plenary sessions, when the speaker was a man, there was up to 18% in average more public than when it was a woman. Here in this other graph, we show that there were no differences, although if the speaker was a man or a woman, in the questions that they received, that it was in average about 2 questions per talk. Then to answer the question whether women and men ask the same number of questions, we follow this approach published by Carter and co-authors in 2018. Basically, if there were no gender bias, we would expect that the percentage of women attendees and the percentage of the questions aroused by women would be the same. This means that if there's 20% of the attendees are women, we would expect 20% of the questions being by women. And in the same way, if 80% of the attendees would be women, 80% of the questions would be arisen by women. So if we see more dots on this part of the plot, we would say that women tend to ask more questions than men. But if we see more dots, more observations on this part of the plot, it would mean that men ask more than women. And what we saw. So here you can see all the dots that corresponds for each observation of each talk. And we can see that there are more dots in this part of the graph, indicating that women ask less questions than men. However, this slope, when we plot that and we make these models, this line, it's not different, the slope is not different to the 1-1, indicating that the presence of the woman, more presence of attendees that there are women, it doesn't mean that more women ask questions. But what about if there was an influence, if the speaker or the chair were women or men? So that's what I'm going to show you in the next slides. And we can see that our results indicate that women and men ask a similar number of questions when the speaker or the chair were women. So here we don't see any differences. But when the speaker or the chair was a man, we saw that there were less questions asked by women. So we saw an effect of the gender of the speaker and the chair on the number of questions arisen by women. Finally, when we move the results from the survey and we ask if you ask whenever you want it, here we can see that only 20% of women ask positively in comparison of the 38% of the men. So looking at that and showing the previous, and we have seen that women are asking less, we have seen that there's a bias here. But when we ask in the survey that if this is a perceived, if it's perceived that women ask less questions, that was a problem that it was unnoticed. So only 32% of the respondents perceived that men asked more questions than women, and this is especially less for men, which was only 20%. About the personal experience of the conference, respondents generally had a good experience and were satisfied with the whole conference. However, when we ask about if they heard stereotypical remarks or have felt the imposter syndrome, which is related to not being to feeling not that good or competent or capable, women tended to report more often than men. Finally, we also show that women had the impression that this conference was not supporting work-life balance more frequently than men. And finally, when we ask which strategies would be carried out to improve the conference, these are some of the ones that they were told us in most of the responses. So to summarize, we did a study. We saw that less women were in the chair panels as uninvited speakers for the special sessions, that women asked less questions and felt more the imposter syndrome. However, all these people did not perceive this problem that women ask less questions. And finally, the more women as speakers and chairs, the more women as speakers and chairs, the more women ask questions. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And with this, I'm going to finish the presentation, but I would like to invite you to go to menti.com and use this code. And I'm going to put that on the Q&A chat with the direct link. And we'd like to hear about your opinions on about these two questions. If you think that the scientific system offers equal opportunities for the different genders, and what could be improved to advance equality in academia. Also, here I'm going to stop to share. I would like to thank again the organizers for inviting us, and we'll be happy to hear your questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much for your presentation, which is very, promising. Yeah, very suggesting too, because there are several issues here. Yeah, there are several issues. We have some questions. Do you want to check for the answers in the Mentimeter during the session too, or what's your plan? Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it would be nice, but I think we'll need to give like some minutes to get the people to answer. So
okay, then maybe we can start with some questions, because we have several questions. There is an initial one that I think it's interesting to reflect on that, because Laura said that women are such a diverse group, and it's obviously true, diverse group of people. So the Laura's question could be if different work environments, such as levels of precarity and other aspects, so for example, non-hierarchical structure, leadership style, etc., attract or maybe repel different female characters. What do you think about that? Or if you have thought about it?
Shall I try to answer? Or so yes, of course. When we do all these studies, we approach that in a very simplified way. So men and women, and of course we are like in different surroundings and in different contexts. And I think that I would agree with Laura, was that that different types of leadership, different surroundings will definitely affect how the progression of women in the academic career. And we are really looking into it, because then it means that there's like some hope. So one of the objectives of our group would be to determine which are like these examples of successful leadership, successful management that will help women to advance.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you're right. It's complicated, because this links with some questions that have to do with the presence, or maybe the differences. So the presence, the women presence, or I would say the differences of this presence among disciplines, because you talk from a STEM discipline. Are you within STEM? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But for example, we are within social sciences, and maybe things are different, not necessarily better, but I would say different, because the number, for example, number of women engaged in research probably are quite different numbers. But, so there are some issues regarding tips that you can give to people who want to start a similar group in their discipline, or if do you think that in other disciplines the same that you are doing can be translated the same way, or have you looked? There is a last one now at human sciences and social sciences. There are several questions on that. issue, because that's I think an important issue.
I can try to answer if it's okay. Yeah, to some of it at least. I think like the one of tips to start your own group in your discipline. I don't know if that's helpful. How happened to us is that our association had a very active group of early career researchers. And because of that, and because it was a concern mainly for young people, it was very easy for us to start discussions. So I would say that are two very good tips. Like if you have something like our association or a strong research environment or project, and within that, then you can have a discussion group and start discussing and start sharing your concerns and your experiences. And from that, you will, I mean, we never had a plan on which projects to perform. So it just happened because those were the things that we thought we needed to know to really evaluate the situation in limnology. And I think that can apply to any discipline the very same way. Yeah, I don't know if that helped.
So you don't plan, because that's another question. You don't plan or look at the same data in other disciplines, in social sciences and humanity, or extend the initiative to other disciplines. That's not in your agenda, is it?
Do you want to take that, Sylvia?
Maybe it's time for us start to think of it.
Yeah, it would be nice, but I also think that the creation of more groups, it's also a nice tool in your own environment, because it's like we are very used to limnology and how STEM works. So we have more or less the background and the tools to try to push and find the tools. But it would be super nice to collaborate in other disciplines also, but having someone from the discipline that helps us to understand how it works, of course.
Yeah, maybe this is the way. So other people start similar initiatives, and then you communicate, and we have several initiatives disciplinarily located, but communicated, or because if initiatives are too small and are too disciplinarily, say, located or differentiated, then the strength of these initiatives can be obviously less.
And we can have also a bias that we don't know, for example. And in collaborations like we are doing with your group, it's also the same for us. It's very, very helpful, and you bring us light in some points that we sometimes don't even think about that. So I think it's much more richful. Yeah.
Makes sense. There's also a question regarding support. Do you have any support from your institutions to implement measures towards gender equity?
Yeah. So if institutions is like our scientific institution, myself, I don't. But in particular, the AIL, that's a good thing that it's an association. Because it's like if the board of the association thinks an activity pays off, then they can opt for giving us money. So for example, the exhibition, we pay for the exhibition thanks to the association. As you saw, the EGU project, we applied for funding, but EGU again is another association that some of us are member of. So that's what I mean, it's related with the previous question. I really think like associations in your field can really change things further than just being in your university. And for us now, like Sylvia mentioned, we are in the CIVECOL, so that's a bigger field, that's the whole ecology. And then we are part of the European Freshwater Federation Sciences. So now they ask us to do something at the European level as well. So, yeah.
So being there and pushing people to think of it. There is a very specific question, which is, I think, interesting, which is, what's your opinion about visibilizing women in science by writing their complete names in the papers we write? Do you think it's a good practice? So I guess it's a way to show we are there.
Yeah, actually in our field, some journal, they also ask to put full names. But of course, yeah, that will help to visualize the role of women researchers. Yeah, I think so. When the name, it's possible to identify the gender, it's not always
Exactly.
across cultures. But yeah, of course, this is something that could help.
Yeah, the names are always, well, in different languages can be tricky. I remember my first conference, it was in Nijmegen. And when I arrived at the hotel, it was night and they look at me and say, well, Montserrat, we expected a man. And I said, well, but that's a women name in Catalonia. So, but they didn't know, obviously. Yeah, it's tricky. It can be difficult depending on the languages. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. There is an issue that bothers me a lot, which is we have been discussing this a lot in political fora, but not in scientific, or at least I'm not aware of that discussion in scientific forums, which is about the positive discrimination issues. So are you in favor of that measures? So let's say you presented data and you said, well, there is less women as invited speakers. So do we want conferences to get at least a standard of inviting equal number or even more women to favor them, so that so-called positive discrimination measure?
Yeah, of course, it depends also on which tool you take for this positive discrimination. But for example, in conferences, it's very, very important to show that the role model, right? Like for an early research career that just starts and just do the PhD, and then she goes to the conference and she only sees men doing the plenaries, for example, it's kind of, it's not my field. What am I doing here, right? So if you really increase women, the number of women that is doing those talks, and they are invited speakers. Of course, it's also recognition. Eh? So when you are like a postdoc and someone invited you, it's also like, okay, my work is worth, right? They're both tools. It also depends in which is the tool. So for conference, I think it might be a must, at least in science. It's, yeah, in STEM, it's quite, it's very low, the numbers. So.
Yeah.
We have been discussing this lately among us because we have different opinions, I must say.
Okay, go ahead.
Somebody said something in our chat recently that was like, men had got positive discrimination for several centuries in sciences. So that's one thing. And yeah, I don't know. The other thing is that I mean, I think it's the system that needs to change. It's not woman or any other diverse person that needs to change.
Yeah. So. It's our brains, I would say. Yeah. Like, for example, the graph that Ada showed, that like the invited speakers were only 33% women. That's not a problem of the association. That were the chairs that choose that. So
obviously, yeah,
it's everyone.
Yeah,
it's a work, a slow work.
You know the counter argument, which is, well, but it's a matter of merits. It's a matter of, of who is able to do this talk, or who is able, or who is well prepared for, which is again a double-sided argument.
I mean, maybe women don't ask because the tools that we offer in conferences are not appropriate for asking, or are not a friendly environment. So there is not just pushing women to ask, right? Or yeah.
Okay, nice, interesting issues, because there's so many here, layers that we could discuss of. We are almost on time. You are about to say something, Ada, or was?
No, I was just thinking about the Mentimeter, but we can share later on the questions. So if we don't have time, we can just present it.
No, but go ahead. I think we have a couple of minutes. There is no other session after that.
I just wanted to say to Nuria Sunye that says that if she can form part of it, of the association, if there are people that that is like external collaboration, so there's no problem to.
That's good too.
To join the group if she's interested, of course.
Okay. There are some congratulations from Raquel. Thank you for the presentation. It's a very interesting project. Yeah.
So just quickly, here we have the results of the 2 questions in the Mentimeter. So the first one, so most of the answers that we got, it was no, there are not the same opportunities. And there were like 3 that one said that yes, more the same opportunities, and 2 that they didn't know. So hopefully after the conference and this talk and the reflection about that, maybe we have more shift in the second column. And then here there are some ideas about how to improve more equality in academia. And there are some very interesting ideas, such as a committee in equality to oversee the goals in our institutions, quotas, as we have discussed already, higher diversity and advisors and confidence, introduce the gender perspective from formative years, so that related to education and placing, giving visualization to this gender work that we have seen that they're increasing. Clear and objective promotion evaluations, promoting women's presence in higher management positions, promoting women's participation in research activities from younger ages. Put full names in the papers, we have discussed that. To train doctoral thesis supervisors so that can play a more relevant role in socialization and a new generation of RCS that does not discriminate by gender. So we can see here that there are like some measures at institutional level, like creating committees or establishing quotas, but also some more visualization of these gender biases that, as we have been focused in our group, might be relevant. Here we have a new one. It says introduce gender's perspective during the university years, training advisors in gender's perspective as well. So making aware that everyone knows about these unbiased, unconscious biases. So I stopped sharing. Thank you so much for the comments.
Thank you. There is another participant, Sandra, that once joined the group. So I say that you said that yes, she can join the group even if she's not.
How do they do that?
Exactly.
They can send an email.
Okay. Can you put the address on the chat, please?
Okay, and thank you very much. Now, yes, we are on time. We invite the participants to attend the next session at
in 2 hours.
Exactly. We have some break now. And thank you very much. That was very inspiring. And we should keep the conversation in some other circumstances, maybe, because there are so many layers here and that's so many things to do yet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the invitation and the participation of everyone.
Okay, good.